Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Engineering Major, Philosophy Minor. Of course, EMPM is the channel where you can get a working aerospace engineer's opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, philosophy, politics, and various other social issues. Of course, the channel has been predominantly used for political stuff because there's a ton of political stuff going on, and it integrates with a lot of the things that I know about engineering, philosophy, and of course, social issues as well. So I want to start out this video just, of course, acknowledging the fact that the media has apparently declared Joe Biden as the next president. I just want to say right at the onset, I don't really accept this declaration from the media. If you guys watched the video that I just posted earlier today, you would see that I talked about this issue that they had in Michigan with this glitch of votes swinging towards Biden due to a software issue. I think that this is a big problem. There have been allegations put forth by the Trump administration in Nevada that people who moved out of state were voting in that state. I was just watching a YouTube clip, or not a YouTube clip, actually a live YouTube cast on a gentleman named Anthony Brian Logan. Awesome black conservative, by the way. Check him out. But a caller called in and said that him and his wife had moved from actually Pennsylvania to Texas. Apparently, he still got his Pennsylvania ballot, even though he had already done the address change and stuff and actually voted in Texas. This, of course, is, it could be that the guy isn't telling the truth. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. He could be telling the truth. It's stuff like this that's going on that's really sketchy. Of course, then there was the issue in Pennsylvania itself where the Trump administration actually did win a lawsuit requiring that Trump's or rather Republican ballot watchers were allowed to go watch stuff. So anyway, I don't want to keep going on and on, but there's just been instance after instance of issues with the voting system. We of course know that the Democrats wanted to pursue this kind of universal, almost mail-in ballot system, claiming that it was a totally flawless system and it would work perfectly. Now, a lot of these other issues may not necessarily be related to mail-in voting specifically, but that said, there's just too much stuff going on, and so I want to say right at the onset, I completely reject this claim by the media that Biden has won the election. Of course, it's not the media that ultimately gets to call the election. We have legal processes, we have constitutional processes that need to follow. Of course, because the media has declared this and they have such a broad reach, everyone around the nation is celebrating. Okay, fine. If you guys want to celebrate freedom of speech, good on you. If Joe Biden actually ends up winning, good on him. That's totally fine. But I personally don't accept the results of this election right now. And that's part of the reason why I'm making this video. So in response to the media declaring that Joe Biden is the victor, of course, now the media is writing article after article about what administration Biden's going to choose, and Biden came out and spoke today, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm sure that he is basically assuming that he has won based on this media decision. It's possible that he says something in that speech where he says, like, hey guys, the election needs to get certified, it's not necessarily over yet, but I highly doubt it. That's definitely not the messaging the Democrats are going to want him to send to the American people. Of course, then Gavin Newsom came out with this little email of his own, basically acknowledging that Biden won. This has been happening from a number of media pundits, politicians. There's already analysis coming out, kind of slandering Trump. Not slandering in maybe in the legal sense, but just kind of the colloquial sense. Just kind of like slandering Trump about why he lost and like, oh, he's off golfing. And just kind of all this other stuff. So I want to go through this email that Gavin wrote really fast. I haven't read the whole thing. I've read maybe the first few lines, so this is going to be a fresh reaction. Gavin says, "This was the victory we needed to see to be the America we know we can be." I gotta stop just right at, let me just go for a second. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were the choice of a record number of American voters and an overwhelming majority of Californians because we know they will represent all Americans. Okay, so the media declared, there's so many things that are just kind of annoying about this. First off, to be the America we know we can be. So in my neighborhood, people are celebrating a Joe Biden victory. Totally fine that they're doing that, but they're flying American flags, right? And there's a bunch of BLM symbols written all over everybody's house, and it's kind of like they have the Biden Harris sign and the BLM sign right next to them, kind of out on people's property, and that's totally fine. But the issue that I have with this is that now all of a sudden, it's okay to fly the American flag, even though you guys spent like literally the last ever since BLM was founded saying that America is systemically racist and needs to be completely torn down. And BLM has gone out and rioted and burned down buildings and kind of merged with Antifa to make like this giant domestic like destruction group. But now all of a sudden America's good. I mean, last I heard, BLM rioters in Oakland were burning American flags and chanting "Death to America." I mean, guys, this isn't Tehran, right? This isn't Afghanistan. Like, so it's just this is what happens on the left is that they somehow manage to adopt like these two positions and these two and commit actions with regards to those positions that are completely incompatible with one another. Like, you can't simply say that America is this horrible, awful, racist place and we need to tear down the system and we need to defund the police and we need to like get rid of all these systems that we have in place. And then but then if the system just elects the person that you want, all of a sudden it's great. And now you get to fly the American flag proudly. I mean, I just sort of think it's like a little bit ridiculous and intellectually inconsistent. So let's keep going. They will treat every person with dignity and deserving of equal opportunity. They will attack systemic injustices, not their fellow Americans. Okay, but the systemic injustices exist in the American system according to the left, right? So if you're attacking the system, you are attacking the fellow Americans. You are attacking the way of life. They will respect rule of law and democratic institutions. Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. They'll respect rule of law and democratic institutions. What except the police and except when it comes to court packing and except when it comes to locking everyone down. And oh, by the way, it's totally cool if you go out into the streets right now. Mask, no mask. Share drinks with everybody. Get super close in packed spaces. And they're going to talk about Gavin's going to mention this in a second. I see the word COVID in all caps. They will elevate science and expertise and renew America's place of leadership in responding to global threats like COVID and climate change. Okay, elevating science from the left? Really? When all of us law-abiding citizens were locked down while BLM went and rioted, well, people weren't allowed to go to church, but people were allowed to go out and riot. And right now, we're not able to go work out at the gym, but people are able to go out into the streets and, just be super happy that Joe Biden got elected. I mean, did COVID just like disappear? They'll elevate science. Oh, really, Gavin? Is that in the same way that you elevated science by claiming that Death Valley had its highest temperature on record in the middle of the wildfires, you blame the wildfires on climate change. Come to find out, when you look into the record, the only reason you guys are calling it the record is because you're moving the goalpost and saying that the scientific finding in the past, was questionable. Except, of course, it always has to be a questionable scientific finding in the direction that you want it to, right? Like, if you guys watch my other video, I talk about this where they say like, oh, well, we think the temperature reading from Death Valley was inaccurate. But that's all they say. They don't say whether or not it could be inaccurate too high or it could be inaccurate too low. What if the temperature recorded on that day was too low? Well, then that means that you didn't really break the record, did you? Except Gavin needs to use that as a political prop so that he can push this climate change agenda BS, which has resulted in crummy forest management, and that's exactly why California keeps getting hit with these severe wildfires. Not to mention the fact that all the environmental regulation on the power industry has made it so that we need to have like rolling blackouts in the state and energy prices have increased. substantially as a result. And it's just a completely inefficient form of power generation that they're trying to go to. And if you guys want evidence of that, you can go check out my video where I just do a simple Google Maps analysis on landmass usage between solar, natural gas, and nuclear. And you'd find that for generating a fifth of the electricity that natural gas or nuclear can generate, solar takes up about 4 to 5 times the space. And that's literally just in land usage. That doesn't account for need of resources, precious metals, construction, maintenance, efficiency. I mean, okay, yeah, you'll elevate science, I'm sure. Let's continue. In short, they will return our better angels to our nation's highest offices. Okay, so you're literally going to compare the Democratic Party. If you elect Democrats, that's better angels, but if there are Republicans, what are we, like, lesser devils? I mean, what are you talking about? Like, America was extremely prosperous before COVID. And by the way, no one could handle COVID, right? It's just a pandemic, and different people have different approaches. And guess what? Everyone who locked down has to re-lock down again. And everybody who didn't lock down and just let it burn through their population, let it burn through their population, and they might be having another spike anyway. Reference Sweden et al. If anyone can turn hurt into healing and deep-seated divisions into common ground, repair our standing around the world, and rally our nation together in this time of unprecedented crisis, it's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Okay, so I just mentioned that they're basically saying if you elect a Democrat, it returns our better angels to our nation's highest offices. By the way, a Democrat who didn't do anything in his campaign. Like, he literally did nothing. He called a lid, like, I would say in a combined total of maybe about a month. I mean, God, give me a break. Repair our standing around the world. Trump just had like 3 historic peace deals. He's made it so that our European allies are paying us the money that they owe us for our defense involvement in their nations. Donald Trump has worked to improve border security. Joe Biden is a fervent believer in our promise to working class Americans because he is a product of it. He knows how to get things done, even in a federal government paralyzed by partisan gridlock. I can't get through it without stopping like every second. Joe Biden is a promise to our working class Americans. In what way? By throwing all our jobs to China? By embracing labor unions that made it difficult for businesses to operate here? By increasing taxes? By increasing corporate taxes? So I'm reading a really great book. It's called Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. I encourage you guys to read or watch or listen to anything by Milton Friedman. Actually, in this book, I just got through a section on free trade. Now, Milton Friedman is actually a proponent of free trade, and I do actually have a slight question about his argument, which is that he's pro free trade in the sense that he likes, freedom of capitalism. He likes freedom of markets, things like that. And I agree with that. But one thing that he hasn't addressed, and maybe it's because I haven't gotten to that point yet, though, is he hasn't addressed what free trade means in the context when the domestic country advocating for free trade has excessive regulation on its own businesses internally and therefore can't be competitive with other nations. Because that's a huge problem, right? Like, the minimum wage, we have to pay people so much that it just doesn't make any economical sense for businesses to employ people here. But mostly, referring to Joe Biden, he is a person of decency, empathy, and strong as oak character. Oh, really? Strong as oak character, as in, I don't want to answer any questions about court packing because I know that it's not politically expedient for me to address that. Oh, strong as oak character, as in, he's going to claim falsely that there's nothing wrong with Hunter Biden, like an issue with his son, when his son was indeed like doing things that were very questionable. He's a person of decency and empathy when he tells voters that they're not black if they vote for Donald Trump. That's really interesting because in this election, Trump got a giant increase in minority support for that exact reason that Joe Biden said these things. Is he a decent man? when he refers to that the black community is different from the Latino community because the black community thinks all the same. Because I know a lot, I just mentioned one in the beginning of this video, Anthony Bryan Logan, Trump supporter, black conservative. He doesn't think like the rest of Black America. Neither do all these other people. So I don't really know that it's fair to call Joe Biden decent. He possesses the moral and ethical compass necessary to guide our nation through this valley of darkness toward a more hopeful, healthy, and unselfish future. You notice how these campaign people that these writers that Gavin has. This is what actually it's not even just them. It's just the Democrats in general. Like they keep referring to everything being like awful and horrible and tragic and disgusting and despicable. It's dark, it's overbearing, it's impossible, untenable. Unless you elect a Democrat, then everything gets hopeful and healthy and blah blah blah. That's funny, Gavin Newsom. I'm pretty sure that you were governor before Trump was ever president. So what about the homeless problem here? You know, what difference does it make what president you have? Like you've messed up the state of California drastically, and you don't need to listen to like. This is what people don't get. The state. The whole point of federalism is that states can have a decent amount of control over their own dominion. They can make laws. They can make requirements. They can have their own taxes. They can have, basically operate completely independently. And then if there's a big issue, then everything goes up to the Supreme Court. Perhaps the federal government will set a national policy on certain things. Although if you are a conservative or a Republican, you want the federal government to not be involved at all. That way, if you don't like what's going on in a state like California, you can move to a state like Texas or a state like Florida and basically have a completely different set of policies. So, Gavin, bro, the buck stops actually with you for most of the people in California. And what have you done for this state? Not much. Not much. Kamala Harris has spent her life making a difference, and now she makes history. Really, what difference was that? Jailing a bunch of people while she joked about committing the offenses that she jailed them for? Wow, that was a really big difference. And what makes it history? Oh, it's history because she's a woman and she's the first person of color. Why can't you guys say something like she makes history because she was extremely qualified, because she has all these amazing accomplishments, because her community outreach is great, because she has a unique perspective on this one issue, because she resolved this one unique issue. Both fitting and phenomenal that the first woman and first person of color to hold an elected office in the White House will be a favorite daughter of California. Is that really the first woman person of color to hold an elected office in the White House? Well, I can't think of somebody else anyway. Kamala is, after all, Kamala is, after all, a walking, whip-smart embodiment of the California dream. What's the California dream? Is the California dream to be homeless and get all your benefits from the government and then just like live on the streets and squalor? Because that's what the California dream looks like to me. Is the California dream to pay the highest taxes in the nation? Give me a break. She's tough, she's passionate, she's persistent, and she's devoted a lifetime to the highest American ideal of justice for all. No, not justice for all. Justice for everyone that's politically convenient for her and for Democrats. Today, her ceiling-shattering accomplishment will put wings on the aspirations and imaginations of young women and people of color all across this country and around the world. I have long been proud to call Kamala Harris my good friend, but I will be even prouder to call her Madame Vice President. My God, dude. These guys just love blowing smoke up you-know-what. Up other people's you-know-whats, man. California is here for it, and we are here for you. Now let's get to work. Yeah, get to work on reducing my friggin' taxes, man. How about that, Gavin? Get to work on opening back up the state. Which, by the way, guarantee what's going to happen the second the second Joe Biden is in is they're just going to say, oh, yeah, we can open up. It's no problem. Yeah, now that, like, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, guys. There is nothing that Joe Biden can do about the pandemic that Trump hasn't already done or tried. So, what's going to happen is a vaccine is going to come out, and hopefully it comes out under the Trump administration. But they're going to say that because it came out under the Trump administration, we have to wait for a little bit and we need to make sure and blah, 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 even though it has nothing to do with Trump at all. Like, the development of it simply has to do with the companies that were competing for this. But I digress. They're gonna not trust it at first, and then the second Joe Biden's president, oh yeah, like we looked into it and we made this special task force that we took away your tax cuts so that we could make this special task force, and now it's all good, and now Joe Biden saved the day, and now we can all open up, and oh, look at that, the economy is doing so well even though we raised taxes because, like, we opened up from a downturn economy. Like, you can easily see how these ideas are going to play out, and man, kind of bugs me, kind of gets me frustrated. Anyway, that said, I think that the media called this a little bit too early. I think that Gavin Newsom's email here about America this and science this and respecting the rule of law and this, and that is completely incompatible with what the Democrats have been doing for the last 4 years in my recent memory. And of course, I was pretty ignorant to politics prior to the last 4 years, but it's pretty arguable that maybe they were doing this even prior to that. Their vision is completely radical, it's completely off. And I think it's too early to call this election. And I want to see, if they really respect the rule of law and democratic institutions, then what they need to do is they shouldn't be calling elections like this and assuming that they have the answer right away. They need to be auditing and understanding what the issues were that happened in the election, and they need to be reassuring all 70 million Trump voters that this was all above board and this was all legit. Instead, they just want to gloat in victory right now. Okay, fair enough. But guys, you're playing a really dangerous game, because now more than ever, after we had 4 years of grand inquisition on Trump, how he was just slandered and mocked and beat down, and I don't want to say beat down because he's handled it very well, but had basically sticks and stones thrown at him by the media for 4 years. He's had investigations, he's had impeachment, he's had to deal with the crisis of the pandemic. He's had to balance the issues with the economy with trying to make sure that he's listening to the science advisors on coronavirus. I mean, the Democrats just think that it's like this really, really easy thing that Trump accomplished. And he still kept basically half of all Americans' support for him. And you guys need to give him the due diligence of the rule of law and the democratic institution, which is that if we the people don't respect the result of the election, and we can provide evidence to the contrary, or we can provide evidence for our claims, we have the right to have this investigated in the same way that Trump was investigated. And furthermore, we have the right to investigate Joe Biden on all these sketchy things that happened to him. This is what the Democrats always do. They want it's rules for thee and not for me. And we've seen this throughout everything that's happened. I could go on. I could list like a bunch of examples right now, but the video is getting super long. All right, guys, let me go ahead and conclude the video right now. Please leave a comment below if you agree or if you disagree. Give it a like, give it a share, subscribe, or none of those things. Even just a comment below is totally appreciated by me. I will look into it. If you guys think that I'm kind of just talking out of my behind, then you can let me know in the comments below. And straight up, as just like a free thinking citizen, I don't believe it's legit. I want to see all the facts. I want to see this all figured out. The fact that Gavin Newsom is already gloating and being a braggart about a victory that was only called by the media. And the media doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. Actually, the rule of law and the democratic institutions are what mean the most to me. So maybe you shouldn't be gloating in victory, Gavin, until the actual institutions certify the election. But of course, that won't happen until we get through figuring out all this stuff. So anyway, guys, have a good night. I don't think I really smiled at all throughout this entire rant, but went through this whole letter from Gavin. It's BS, man. Little letters like this bother me because they're just saying a bunch of stuff that is completely opposite of what they've been doing for years. And I mean, I honestly think it's really insulting that they think that you know Americans generally, but specifically conservatives, Republicans, and Trump supporters, that they think we're so stupid. It's insulting that they think we don't have a memory for things that happen, or that we can't look at the fact patterns and make deductions on this stuff, or that they're the party of science and none of us are educated. I mean, here you've got an aerospace engineer talking to you guys about politics. I mean, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Thank you very much, Gavin. So we're smarter than this, guys. Look into this stuff. Convince me that I'm wrong. That's another smart thing to do as well. I mean, if you can convince me I'm wrong, hey, go for it. So that's gonna be it, guys. All right. Good night.